Hiya Chris, great to meet up with you and spend some time working on your short game of all things, which was quite a unique opportunity. I think we both enjoyed the session, to be honest. I think it's an area that you can definitely improve and develop over the coming months. Certainly an area that you can really get your teeth into and work on some nice things and actually see some measurable results. Put my teeth back in pretty quickly. You can see here on the top left at the start of your session, you were hitting a lot of shots with a very lofted wedge and always sort of taking loft off the club. So we've got quite a bit of shaft lean there. And then we started to put a little bit less loft in your hand and asked you to maybe sort of hit the ball on, hit the ball certainly the same yardage, and we started to see a slight softening of that shaft angle. We started to see the ball moving a little bit further forward. We started to see the stance widen a fraction. And then we tightened the lie. We talked about how we spend too much time on good lies, when I say good lies in relative terms, we tend to be putting it on a nice little tuft in winter because the ground's terrible and we just want to make sure that we get the damn thing on the green. Some clubs were playing off plastic mats, etc. We never really spend enough time on a tight lie. When we practice, we need to get into some bad lies and accept that we will hit some poor shots, but at least we're testing ourselves a little bit more. So the next thing we did was alter the lie. We put you on the strike board. We've got, again, a little bit less loft, asking you to hit the same distance. Impact position very similar. The move into the ball changed slightly on that one, but certainly the move into impact wasn't that much different. And then on this one here down the bottom left, we start asking you to hit the ball a fraction higher. We can see when you do that, you get a little bit more driving with the legs. You certainly get a little bit more axis tilt because of that, and you get a little bit more of a vertical shaft at impact. And again here we're asking you to hit, I think if memory serves me right, this was a real high lob shot. So you've got the club face open, you've got the stance a bit wider, you've got the ball further forward again. And then there's some interesting changes in the length of your arc as well. So what I'm going to do now is going to play these swings through, so they're all synced up at impact, and have a little look at what goes on through the ball. What we start to see is a much higher rate of overtaking. So here we've got lots of loft in our hand. We're trying to take loft off the club all the time, and as a result, the overtaking rate is lower than when we're playing it with a little bit less loft and off a tighter line. One of the reasons for that is because when we've no loft and we're taking loft off, we're using the leading edge of the club more, and we need to get that leading edge out of the ground, so the length of arc on the through swing tends to be a little bit longer. As we get, we're trying to play that lob shot, we want to keep the loft on the club. We're also playing off a more difficult lie, and we're trying to use the bounce of the club, because the bounce of the club allows some forgiveness. And the quicker we overtake, the more loft we can keep on the club, and the better we can engage the bounce during the through swing. So we're looking at, if we wanted to play a low shot, this was one of the things we discussed, if we wanted to play a low shot, we'd move the ball back, we'd have the handle forward, but we'd also want a longer arc on the way through. And if we want to play a high shot, we're going to move the ball forward, we're going to widen the stance a little bit, and we're going to overtake quicker on the way through. Now, these are all variables that you can use and add as and when you see fit. So we were using the scenario, we were using like a spectrum of ball positions, and one of the scenarios we used was, hitting it a little bit higher. And we said, right, if you use your standard wedge, maybe playing it with a 52 or a 54, and you wanted to hit it a little bit higher, what could you do? Well, the first thing you could do is just move the ball up in your stance a little bit. That would give you a little bit more height. And then you might want to hit it a little bit higher than that. So you could move the ball forward, and you could widen the stance a little bit. And then you want to hit it a little bit higher again. So we can go ball forward, we can go wider stance, we can open the club face up. And then we wanted to hit it the highest, we could go ball forward, wider stance, open club face, increase the overtaking rate. Obviously, each time we add a variable, the swing becomes a little bit more complex. Sometimes we might just want to go get a more lofted wedge, but other times we might need to add those variables. So it depends on the scenario you're in. We can look at this in future sessions, maybe spend some time down on the short game area at the club and getting some different lies where the grass is longer or more sparse, and the scenario is different. But as long as you understand the variables, you can add and take out whatever you want whenever you need to, and you can experiment a little bit more in practice. So if we look at start of the session, which is this one here, top left, where you're hitting not necessarily a low wedge shot, but you're hitting you're trying to hit a standard 60-yard wedge, but you're doing it with a 60-degree lob wedge, and you're taking loft off. And if we then compare that to, let's get rid of that, the final piece of footage where you're hitting a really high lob shot off a tight lie with a 52-degree wedge. So you've moved the ball forward, you've opened your stance, you've opened your club face, should I say, relatively square stance. We see that the release points move further forward, so the butt of the club's slightly more advanced. Ball's gone slightly further forward, stance has gone slightly wider. Instead of hitting it with negative loft, we're trying to keep the loft on. The overtaking rate's increased dramatically, and the arc of the through swing is a little bit shorter. So depending on what shot you're trying to create will depend on how the swing looks. I would say through the hit in regards to overtaking, flat left wrist, cupping the left wrist, it's all relative to the type of shot that you're trying to play and the sort of conditions you want at impact to satisfy the lie, the situation that you're in. Hope that makes sense for you, Chris. It was a great session. I look forward to doing it again in a few weeks' time. Good luck with it, and please keep me posted on your progress. Well done.